Hey guys, welcome back to Based MMA. In this video, I'm going to be discussing why the UFC welterweight division is still in shambles. It's still the worst division in the UFC. And if you guys remember, 3 months ago, I posted a video called The UFC welterweight division is in shambles. And in that video, I discussed that the reason why the welterweight division was in shambles was because there was no movement. There was no fights. There was no Kamaru Usman didn't have a fight. Bilal Muhammad didn't have a fight. The Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards fight wasn't announced yet. Gilbert Burns doesn't have a fight. Stephen Thompson did not have a fight. I believe Ian Gary had just fought Neil Magny. JDM had just fought Kevin Holland. But the top guys in the welterweight division had no fights booked, which is why I made a video saying that the welterweight division was the worst division in the UFC and that it was in shambles. And now after UFC 296, there was a lot of welterweight matchups. I mean, Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington, Shavkat Ramana versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And then we truly didn't get Ian Gary versus Vicente Luque. But even besides all that, even though we got some movement at the top of the division, I still believe that the welterweight division is absolutely the worst division in the UFC. And let's get started by talking about the champion, Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards, guys, he's never going to be an entertaining champion. He's never going to be a guy that brings pay-per-views, and that's fine. Not every guy needs to be a superstar. Now, with all that being said, it doesn't help the attitude that he's kind of adopted lately, where he doesn't want to fight anybody. When MMA media ask him, hey, so do you want to fight Shavkat Ramanov next? Is that something that interests you, Leon Edwards? He's like, no, like that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. So then they ask him, okay, well, what about Bilal Muhammad? He's on a good win streak. He's coming off a win over Gilbert Burns. He's on a 9-fight win streak, just like you were. So does Bilal Muhammad make sense to fight you next? Oh no, it doesn't. It doesn't make sense for Bilal Muhammad to get a title shot. So Leon Edwards, either he's a moron, either he has no brain cells, or he doesn't want to fight anybody. And whichever it is, it's still a problem, and it still shows why the welterweight division is such a mess. And honestly, I need to apologize to Kamaru Usman, because when Kamaru Usman was champion, I could not wait till Kamaru Usman until he lost, man. And in retrospect, in hindsight, Kamaru Usman was a great champion, and he was a lot more entertaining than a lot of us gave him credit for, because those Colby Covington fights were incredibly entertaining. Maybe the first Jorge Masvidal fight, because it was on short notice, it was kind of a snooze fest. But the Gilbert Burns fight was also pretty entertaining. The Colby Covington rematch, the Jorge Masvidal rematch. Probably his most boring fight as a champion was probably that Leon Edwards fight where he lost. But besides all that, like, Kamaru Usman is an actually exciting fighter. And Leon Edwards has shown that even though he's very dominant right now, he's not that entertaining. And it's not only because when I say that, a lot of you guys are gonna say, well, you're just saying that he's not entertaining because he's not having scraps and he's not, going through wars. But it's not even that, man, because you look at people like Islam Makhachev, who are very technical. They have that killer instinct. And the thing with Leon Edwards that makes him so boring to watch is that when you're watching him, you can tell that this guy has no killer instinct, that this guy isn't going out there to hurt his opponent. He's just going out there to not lose and to just do enough to win. And no matter what way you paint it, it's never going to be entertaining to anybody to have a champion that just does the bare minimum. And that's the same kind of shit we shit on Israel Adesanya for being this point fighter, for running around the cage for 5 rounds, for not imposing damage, for not taking any risk, for not, trying to fight in a fight. And it feels like with Leon Edwards, people get so defensive when I say that, but when we say that about Israel Adesanya, we're very quick to be like, yeah, Israel Adesanya is boring. But if you think about it, Israel Adesanya is way more entertaining than Leon Edwards. I mean, think about even his title run. I mean, his run before he got to the title, when he fought Kelvin Gastelum, that Derek Brunson fight wasn't boring. So he's had entertaining fights, and even that Robert Whittaker, that first fight where he won the title, pretty entertaining. The Alex Pereira fights were pretty entertaining. The Marvin Vettori fights were boring. Yoel Romero fight was boring. The Jerry Cannonier fight was boring. So he's had boring fights. I'm not saying that Israel Adesanya is super entertaining, but he's had more knockouts and more finishes and more impressive performances than somebody like Leon Edwards, who, like, the reason why I was so critical of Leon Edwards after that Colby Covington fight was because we clearly had the worst version of Colby Covington. The worst version. The worst version. If maybe the best version of Colby Covington showed up and Leon Edwards, he's able to get the win, but it was a very competitive match, and that's the kind of performance Leon Edwards puts, then I'll be like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Colby Covington still got it. It's very competitive. It was going to be a close match no matter what. But from that first round, you realize that we got the worst version of Colby Covington, and Leon Edwards was still not able to impose enough damage to even get him out of there, to stun him, to drop him, to really hurt this guy, which makes it not that entertaining, man. It makes it not that entertaining. And the fact that he also kind of gave up the fifth round, and the fact that he ends the fifth round on his back, it just makes it very lackluster, man. It makes it very lackluster. And as an MMA fan, I mean, every time there's going to be a Leon Edwards pay-per-view, I don't care that much about it. Honestly, I don't care much. I don't care much about it, even though I'm a hardcore MMA fan and I still care about what happens in this division and all the divisions. But Leon Edwards is boring. So Leon Edwards is a boring champion. Yes, he's good. Okay, when I say boring, I'm not saying that he's trash. He's very good. He's very skilled. But I just wish he had that killer instinct. You know what I'm saying? I just wish he had that killer instinct. Now, Shavkat Ramonov is now ranked number 2. So Shavkat Ramonov is not going to fight for the title because Bilal Muhammad is next, which I agree with. I think Bilal Muhammad, even though, he's kind of a meme in the MMA community, he's kind of a meme because his fights go to a decision, even though he probably has the same amount of finishes as Colby Covington, everybody likes to roast Bilal Muhammad. And that Bilal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards fight, it's not going to do great business. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to do great business, but I still think it's what should happen next because that's the right thing to do. But let's be honest, after that Bilal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards fight, is the welterweight division really going to be all that exciting? No. And then Shavkat Ramonov just fought Stephen Thompson, and I get that he was injured, but it also wasn't that entertaining of a performance. It was a pretty lackluster performance. Yes, I get it. It showed that Shavkat Ramonov is very good in the clinch. Nobody had been able to submit Stephen Thompson. I already know all these guys are going to be commenting in my video. But still, be honest, it was not entertaining. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't that performance by Shavkat Ramonov that's really going to, pressure the UFC to say, man, this guy needs a title shot now. Like, yes, for the hardcore MMA fan, it's impressive that he submitted Stephen Thompson. But for the casual viewer and for the UFC, I don't think it's enough for him to get a title shot. So in my opinion, the UFC should probably make Shavkat Ramonov versus Kamaru Usman. I think that's the fight that makes sense. And I think that if Shavkat Ramonov is able to get through Kamaru Usman, then he should get a title shot. Bilal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards is probably what should happen next. And let's talk about Colby Covington. He's going to become a politician, guys. Expect President Colby Covington 2032 because Colby Covington is probably never going to fight for the title. Clearly, this guy's not hungry anymore. And that's something that I mentioned before the Leon Edwards fight. I made a video why I was worried about Colby Covington. And the reason I was worried is because, one, he's 36 years old. He hasn't been fighting for that long. He hasn't been active. He's lost 2 title fights already. And I just had the sense, I just had a feeling that Colby Covington just wasn't that hungry anymore. Like, he doesn't really care about fighting all that much. Either he cares more about being a celebrity or his side businesses, whatever he does. But when it comes to actually being the best mixed martial artist, I don't think Colby Covington's heart is there anymore. So I don't really think Colby Covington's going to fight. Maybe they make that Stephen Thompson fight, but who gives a fuck? Like, if Colby wins that fight, he's not going to get a title shot. He's still going to need to fight a top contender. And if Stephen Thompson wins, he's not going to get a title shot either or a number 1 contender spot because he just got submitted by Shavkat Ramonov in the second round easily. You know what I'm saying? So that Colby Covington versus Stephen Thompson fight just feels like a mid-off. Like, it doesn't really feel like it has any purpose. And like I said, I don't think Colby Covington's that hungry anymore. So I'd be very surprised if he even fights again. I don't think Colby Covington's going to fight. Now, Gilbert Burns is going to fight JDM. And this is where, there is hope for the welterweight division because JDM versus Gilbert Burns is an exciting matchup. I kind of want to see these up-and-comers like Ian Gary and JDM start to climb the top of the welterweight division because even though I know Ian Gary, he's a cuck and I'm not even going to get started on that. I think he's an exciting fighter, and I think the welterweight division needs Ian Gary. You know what I'm saying? I think they desperately need it because Leon Edwards is boring. Bilal Muhammad isn't all that exciting, and he's never going to be a pay-per-view draw. Kamaru Usman is on the decline. Shavkat Rakhmonov doesn't speak English. Colby Covington is out. You know what I'm saying? So there's this lack of like star power and like real, I guess, up and comers in the welterweight division. I think Ian Gary and JDM can be those guys that climb the top of the division. And I would kind of encourage the UFC not to match up Ian Gary and JDM right now. Don't match them up. Let them fight these other old vets and kind of climb to the division and then make them fight maybe once Ian Gary fights for the title, maybe becomes champion, or JDM fights for a number one contender, then you let them fight and it's an exciting build-up in the welterweight division because right now the welterweight division is incredibly lackluster. I mean, Ian Gary's going to fight Jeff Neal. That's a great matchup. So it feels like the best matchups are in the 5 to 15 ranking, but the top 5 in the welterweight division, it's just boring, man. It's just terrible. It's not entertaining. The welterweight division, I was crapping on them for the lack of activity, and even with activity, it's still mid. You know what I'm saying? It's still the worst division in the UFC, guys. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys like the welterweight division? What do you think of Leon Edwards as a champion? Do you miss Kamaru Usman? Do you want Bilal Muhammad to fight for the title? Do you want Bilal Muhammad to be champion? Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.